the problem statement for these brands alongside this is something wherein they also need to understand what is exactly working out for their brand in terms of marketing activities they're doing, because there are marketing activities happen in multiple phases, from awareness to consideration to conversion. So in order to understand how exactly the customer journeys are, in order to have the conversion into place, the attribution models helps you. Now there are multiple attribution model like first click, last click, but I'll just cover this particular thing and I'll just give you an example after that. So there are two visitors. One is in purple, another is in green. The first visitor saw your ad on Instagram and visited your website. Now, while the next day, the visitor directly searched you on Google and found out your ad, which was over there, clicked on it, and then landed on your website, added something to the cart, but did not check out yet. So that's the second part. Now, after say a week or so, the visitor directly visit your website through the browser and made a purchase. Now, for a brand, that purchase from a last click perspective would look as if the user had bought directly from the brand, from the site itself, without any effort of the marketing. What that means is, during the purchase time, the visitor did not land on the website from any of the ads that were being run. So the visitor came directly. So that's what the attribution is about. I'll talk about it, how to use it, what are the pros and cons of each first click, last click. But first, let me just cover this particular part. So the second visitor is in green. They first saw your ad on Google, might be a display network, and then next time while you were scrolling your Instagram, during that point in time, the visitor saw the ad on Instagram as well and came to the site, added something to the cart, did not check out, and then later on went again uh, just back to the site and then found your ad again on display and then made a purchase. Now, from a last click perspective, it would look like that display something which has worked out pretty well, and followed by these two things. So these are primarily the loyalty part, wherein these two visitors, while they were being sent email notification about some sort of a offering or some sort of a recurring purchase that they could make. So that's where they converted. Now, in order to identify all this, it is very much important to have anonymize the user. Now, what do I mean by anonymize is primarily that here, while the visitor is coming for the very first time on your platform, which is in the awareness phase, during that point in time, you do not know the identity of the visitor in terms of their email address, phone number, etc. Now, since they are anonymous visitors, it's very hard to track these anonymous visitors since they are coming repetitively on your site. You are only able to track them while they are making the conversion. That means while they are submitting the information to you. Now, AcquX primarily helps you over here in order to identify these previous visits as well, on top of the conversion visits. Now, let me give you an example so that all of you can understand it better. So here we have a brand which is into finance. They primarily have their own small case into place. They run various kinds of ads and they have multiple channels for user acquisition. Primarily, what they do is they generate leads from their website, and then they have a telecalling and a pre-sales team into place which helps them sell their offerings to these users. So here I'll just make you understand all these columns. So first is the source. So source is primarily the marketing channel through which they run ads or do any sort of marketing, paid or free, any which way. The second part to it is the first click. So there are 3105 leads that this brand captured during this duration in May. Now, out of these leads, this was the first click part. What that means is, out of these number of leads, 340 came directly on the platform, right? And same goes with organic search. So these many came directly. And at the time of capture, so while they submitted the lead, this was the source. So during that point in time, what was being seen by this brand is direct has a very good traffic in terms of the users who are submitting the lead. Now over here, if you see, direct has the highest, but in the first click, direct has bit low. I would say pretty low in terms of the number over here. So it's hardly 33% of what it is over here. Now, in order to understand what exactly is working out for this brand, how is it performing, you look at the attribution aspect. So blue one is the first click aspect, wherein you can see these number of leads were generated, and this was the first click source. So this was the first touch point of these visitors who actually got converted into leads. Now blue one, as I mentioned, is primarily the first click part, and red one is the last click part. So red one is at the time of capture. Now, if you see over here, the red one shows that direct has highest number of leads that got captured, second highest number of leads, and it differs a lot from the first click aspect. Now, what this means is these visitors who actually submitted their lead directly to the brand did not actually came directly to the brand, rather they came through some other sources in the first touch point. Now, what these sources were, in order to identify these sources, the first click attribute is very handy, wherein you can clearly see that small case and paid search over here has very good number of visitors who actually submitted the lead in terms of the first click, but only few of them they submitted the lead, hardly 50% over here and almost 60% over here who submitted the lead from a last click perspective at the time of capture. What happened was this attribution that was there with small case and paid search actually went over here in direct. Now, the implication of this particular thing is primarily while calculating the ROI from each channel, it is very hard for brand to understand how exactly to calculate the ROI. In general, how exactly the brand do it is using these red lines, which is at the time of capture. What this leads to is our default error in the calculation that they do of a ROI, because ROI is something which should be calculated basis this, the blue line, for these kind of brands. And attribution models differs from brand to brand. It depends what kind of product you have, what kind of service you have. At times it might be that it is just first click which you take, it might be the last click. So it depends from category to category. I can't say that there is a straight formula to it. Rather, you need to understand the path of these users while they are visiting. It might take 7 visits, it might take 3 visits, it might take any number of visits for these users to actually convert. But what is more important to understand is primarily, are you tracking these metrics or not?